Hey guys, welcome to week 5 of class. Hey, this week we're going to dive into a subject that in many ways is not a topic that many Americans are as familiar with. They're pretty familiar with World War II, but we're going to be looking at World War I this week. And part of the reason why Americans or citizens of the United States are not as familiar with this conflict is because it wasn't a conflict that the U.S. was a part of in a militaristic sort of sense until almost the very end. The war itself breaks out in 1914, and it comes to an end in 1918. The Peace Treaty of Versailles is signed in 1919, but the United States doesn't get involved until about 1917. And so, with respects to the number of dead, and we're talking about over 10 million people died in this conflict, and the U.S. lost just thousands within comparison to those millions. And so, as far as casualty is concerned, the United States didn't lose anywhere near as many people. And so for that reason, it's not something that's really well understood by most Americans. But here's the thing. World War I is the prime cause for World War II. And in some respects, it is kind of a continuation of World War I. And we're going to see that, especially when we take a look at the Peace Treaty, which caused the war to come to an end, known as the Treaty of Versailles. This is a treaty that you're going to hear come up time and time again when we begin to talk about World War II. But this war, World War I, the war that's known as the War to End All Wars, or the Great War, was really a European conflict. And so in some ways, we're going to be spending some time looking at European history as we look at some of the central causes of World War I. But when the war erupted in 1912, Woodrow Wilson was the president of the United States, and he took a stance of neutrality. And this position of being neutral was something that the U.S. had undertaken for many, many years. You can go all the way back to George Washington and see that we have a position of neutrality. And so that's what we're going to do. But here's the thing. We were connected to Europe economically. When they went to war with one another, the United States sort of took it upon itself to trade with these powers. And when you are trading economically with warring powers, you are invariably and inevitably going to be sucked into the conflict. And in the end, due to a number of circumstances, including unrestricted submarine warfare, there's a series of other events, including something called the Zimmerman Telegram. We'll talk about that in the lecture this week. All of these things ultimately bring the United States into the conflict. And Woodrow Wilson, in many ways, decided to do this because he, one, wanted to make the world safe for democracy. He wanted to ensure that democratic ideals and ideologies could spread throughout the world. But the other thing is he wanted to be a participant in the long-lasting peace, which he hoped would follow World War I. One of the things he wanted to do, he forwarded this in what we call his 14 points, and we'll talk about that some more this week. But he really wanted to make sure that something like World War I would never happen again, that instead we could talk about our differences as opposed to going to war with them, or rather over them. So that's what we're going to be looking at this week, dealing with World War I, okay? The other thing that I just want to mention to you, as always, is, be thinking about your first PowerPoint assignment. Read through that assignment as is stipulated in the syllabus and get back to me just as soon as you can so that I can get an idea of where your mind is and what it is you're hoping to do, okay? All right, well, that's pretty much what I have for you this week. So, as always, I will ask you to go in peace, be warm and filled, may the force be with you, live long and prosper, and may the odds forever be in your favor. All right, guys, have a blessed week.